Very good morning to one and all of you, and my very special thanks to Dr. Vidushi Sharma to remember me every year to include me in this course. So the talk is predominantly solo practice. Can they survive? I would want each of us to think in our minds, do we have that survivor instinct in us? Do we have that feeling that excelling is going to become the habit of the day? Then I think we are the right people to go into solo practice. Essentially, the life's battle doesn't always go to the stronger or the faster man, but the man who wins is actually the man who thinks he can. In other words, to get into a solo practice, stress should become a part of you, and you should be able to manage this duress very well. And more importantly, it's not like it's a success spell. You have to spell the success for yourself and move forward. It is not like a chessboard game. It is like a chessboard game, actually, a very checkered game. You have to be very cautious and very planned in your moves, and cannot take even a day in complacence. Again, we have to be very realistic in our dreams. You know, we are those of us who have this desire to go into space or do bungee jumping or even deep sea diving. That kind of aggression or adrenaline surge has to be in us if you are looking at solo practice, because it is like a roller coaster ride. But to be right on goal, we have to be very logical and work out the logistics, be very strategic, start in small measures, build the confidence in your immediate surrounds, and always be consistent in your model of thinking or your principles, and try your best to become the first in the region with any equipment which you come in. The success story could happen in any of these modalities of practice, but the most important mantra is the patient care, and that has to somehow stay on in your system, even as your system expands from 1 to any number, but patient mantra is most critical. Never feel ashamed. Go and be an audience. Visit any number of practices and sit there as a patient to visualize those glaring defects which you may notice, and see to it that you do not evolve them in your practice. Make newer mistakes, but do not repeat the same old mistakes. And it's a destiny. It's like any number of paths which you have, and the path which you choose is not something by chance. It is something which you have chosen, and only then you would be successful. And it is something you have to arrive at your goals and not think that it will just come upon you. I would say it has to be a burning desire. And more importantly, to have a sustained success story, you need to become a person of value. So when your solo practice evolves and as it expands, you have to start evolving your dream team, right from the front desk to your room sister to your ward nurse, at whichever level of growth you are. And you have to go wherever you travel. You keep looking for those kind of strategic partners who could build to your practice. And they should be those who would believe that they could grow with you. And often you would find it's a homegrown talent. If you are able to nourish that talent and evolve, he would have your principles embedded in him, and it will take you faster than getting a newcomer into your game plan. Always remember that when you're looking at a solo practice, you should try to grow in such a manner that you are one of the first to get the cutting edge technology, and should always have the best practice patterns so that the patient feels utterly confident that they have come to you in spite of a big institution sitting next door. As you evolve, you start departmentalizing your work, develop very strong verticals, the best of financial wizards, a good marketing team. You could start out with one marketing guy, but evolve to have a team, because it is at every point of time it's necessary that in a gentle way you keep announcing to your neighboring doctors who are going to be your strong core referrals that what is your potential and what is your talent, and never assume and just sit back in your room and think that the patients would come flowing in. Your front desk is the most critical area, and that actually reflects the pathos of the organization. So you should be very critical and very strict and sieve out all those who are not good enough, who do not help you to realize your dream. Never stop. Always reevaluate yourself at different levels of your practice. Be very critical and be very analytical as you go ahead, and always ensure that you promise to your patient and you provide. Darwin's theory is something we all understand, is a principle, is a viewpoint which is honed in us, and it is the survival of the fittest. But again, if you look at some other person's practice, it may not be the right mantra for you because arctics and tropics climatically differ. So you need to look into what your surrounds need and to arrive at it. And these are the multiple questions which you time and again ask yourself. Have you reached your goal? Where are you? In which direction are you going? Have you been off your track? And somehow stabilize yourself and get to going about what you want. It has to be very clear, specific, measurable goals. And it's advised if you have that blue sky thinking, like, of course I can achieve it all. If he could do it, why cannot I do it? Rather than getting introspective and doubting your own innate potential. And this is, after all, a stage. This is a stage where you're going to do your act. And why not do it well? Because the chance never comes back again. And in this gray line, start thinking whether you're going to really go ahead to be the first in the region to get the cutting edge technology. Do you have any of these guys who are going to pay up for you? If not, then it becomes critical that you really try to go and offer the very best to the patient, even if you have to take some loans in the banks or whichever way you need to go about it. But believe me, if you have all the right credentials with you, success is going to be there, because there is this population which is sitting outside wanting the best practice patterns and the best guy with that ethical practice to take him on. So be all that you can be, and I would say it should be an attitude where you hold the raging bull by the horn and go aggressively into the battlefield. You have to be very strategic. You have to be project your effectiveness into your society. Always have a very positive approach. Ensure that negativism does not creep in, even if in your early days when you have just 2 patients sitting outside in your clinic. And start in small measures, but always have right projections. You should analyze your results month after month, which you're still doing after having reached a certain level. We keep analyzing the last month's performance, the last year's performance, the 2-year back performance to understand whether we are stagnating or growing. If we are stagnating, then we have to re-evolve the right measures to move on. It's important that you're looked on with trust, and you have to dispel these doubts which are there in your mind and in the patient mind, and grow about creating awareness. The awareness could be anything, in-house, it could be touch screens or displays or brochures, which you should unhesitantly offer to your patient besides your talking, because you may have talked effectively, but they would not have understood at that point of time, and they go back and read those brochures. It definitely has an impact. You should have the right kind of counselors who are very cheerful and very positive. You should go on to any number of public meetings and take up different challenging topics and work hard on it and impress that audience which is sitting there. Even if it's a 20-member audience, they should go back home thinking that at least you spoke very well. They would hope that you would deliver well too. Ensure that you keep your patients informed at all times, even if it's at the expense of your chair time. And when you're looking at a growing practice, it should not just that you have the best of equipments. Even your medical outlet, your pharmacy, every area should have a state-of-art look. Even though if it is small, gradually you could make it more beautiful, but it's very important that the patient steps in. They think that this is the area where he is going to be taken care of and done well. Be always open to newer innovations. Don't get critical, even if you can't afford it at that time. And if you have a group of colleagues, sit and frankly exchange thoughts and get all the positive and negatives before you take on with a project. At every point of time, visit successful practices. Anytime we go to ACRS or any other conference, we make it a point to contact the doctor, meet 1 or 2. There's something, either a compassion or the way he practiced. Finally, you always come back telling yourself that it's the patient mantra which is the main magic. There is a changing demand of different age groups. So you need to understand that your patient population may have different requirements, and you should build up your practice that you're able to meet those requirements. The younger age group would want refractive surgery. Either you have it in your setup or you go and join some place where you could go and do your surgeries and come. Ensure that you're able to cater to different age groups. There are certain doubtful investments. So just because the next guy has got it, you need not get it. You have to be analytic as to how much it's going to translate into your practice. You would need to have even multiple technologies. If you're doing refractive surgery, you should be able to do surface ablations, create flaps, do ICLs. Again, in cataract surgery, you should be able to do the whole gamut of surgeries, if not the femtocataract. But of course, it's going to erode your chair time, but that's very critical. Constantly look at team building and constantly try to retain honesty and transparency in your group, because that trust is what each of these guys in his specific rooms would talk with the same language which you want to talk. Change is inevitable, so you need to look whether you want to progress. The advertisements need not be crazy advertisements. It has to be very balanced. You need to try one and see if it gets the response, and in a very graded manner, try to spread word about your capabilities. Google is, of course, a glorious way. Keep on molding your team. You need to remember that every team member may not think like you. You started the practice, so you should have the power of bold vision to go forward and never at any point of time lose an opportunity, a podium presence, or an attendance in a conference. Take it all, because if not just the immediate patient group, the patient doctors from the other societies would understand that this is a guy who's got a lot of aggression and good thoughts in his mind who'd let you come forward. There are rapid changes which are occurring. There's emergence of newer models. There's going to be phenomenal pressure on profit margins as you go on. There would even be a temporary decline, but those are the times when you need to look back into your practice, consolidate yourself, and move forward. To achieve something which you have never achieved before, you automatically need to become somebody you have never been. You have to just give a lot more of yourself and keep on responding to the newer landscape with a very cutting-edge technology. I would say to stand in one place, you have to be constantly running. And in a solo practice, you need to be always on the run, never fall back, and never let go of your dream. You could even look at a boutique kind of practice and not be like one among the mining crowd. So whatever the mind can achieve and believe, I think the mind can definitely achieve. Always remember that there are going to be players in every segment, a boutique practice, a group practice, a solo practice. So you need to be ensure that you've got the right values and not keep changing direction and stick on to your model of practice. I really loved reading what I'm going to read to you now. It says that if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he could sweep the streets even as Michelangelo painted or Beethoven composed music or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep the streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will just pause to say, oh, there lived the greatest street sweeper who did his job very well. In other words, whatever be the job we do, if we do it well, there's an enormous sense of satisfaction. Let's all understand as I conclude that we will all die one day, but why not create something that is going to live beyond us? Thank you.